You recall before we had right here, this was the larynx, then trachea. Open this up here, pull the trachea out of the way, this brown tube behind the trachea. Right in here, this was the esophagus, all right? Let's pull that back out of the way now. What's left behind this little hole here is the pharynx in that area.
Phone's in the way.
Okay, look
Sorry.
out. All right, so again, that's the pharynx. Then we had a gland right in here. This is a salivary gland called the submandibular gland right in this region. Now on either side of where the trachea and the pharynx were, we also had some blood vessels in the vein and a neurovascular bundle. Most minks, the artery and the nerve showed up well, the vein did not. The nerve right in here, you can see, is the vagus nerve. What will this be, by the way, left or right?
Left.
Left. So left vagus nerve. Right beside it here, the artery would be the left common carotid artery. The vein that does not show up here would be the left internal jugular vein. A vein, by the way, on the outside running through this area would be the external jugular vein, but again, on this mink does not show up quite as well. All right? So those are structures we can see here again in the neck cervical region. Now we can come out into the mink's thoracic region here. First up, we have this organ right in here. This was the thymus. Pull that back out of the way. The large vein we see here was the superior vena cava. And of course, we have the heart. So holding up the heart, how it would appear inside the mink. What are the different parts of the heart? We have the right atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle, and on the back side in here was the left atrium. Then up on top here we have the stoplight. See, like 1, 2, 3 structures, blue, red, blue. This thing here is superior vena cava, aorta, pulmonary trunk. The big vein down here would be inferior vena cava. And this one vein here with a lot of clotted blood in it, that would be a pulmonary vein. Okay? So that's parts of the heart overall. Back inside the thoracic cavity, if I can pull this vein out of the way, remember we had our aorta right here that was cut in cross section. Then we had two big arteries branching off the aorta. On the mink's left-hand side, right in here, this was the left subclavian artery. On the right-hand side, this big artery was brachiocephalic trunk. And there are 3 branches that come off the brachiocephalic trunk branching like this, the bird's foot. So right in here, first up, we had, this is the left common carotid artery. Right in here is the right common carotid, and going out to the mink's arm, you can barely see this little red thing right in there. That would be the right subclavian artery. So left common carotid, right subclavian. Out here in the mink's underarm, by the way, if you see an artery going out in this area, the artery and vein out in this region would be the axillary artery and the axillary vein. The nerves here, all these white strings, that's the mink's brachial plexus. So all the nerves we see in the mink's underarm out in that region. Okay? Going back into the thoracic cavity, again, here is our trachea going downward to branch into the bronchi. So on this side, you see a left bronchus. Here is a right bronchus. Okay? Then we also have the mink's lungs. The mink's left lung just had 2 lobes. We had a superior lobe, inferior lobe. The right lung had 4 lobes. Superior, middle, way down here is inferior, then right there is the cardiac lobe. So superior, middle, inferior, cardiac lobe. The big vein here, by the way, right there, that's the inferior vena cava. The muscle down in that would be diaphragm in that region. Okay? Here's something else you don't see too often. Phrenic nerve, not on your list, but it's kind of cool. So again, that's parts of the mink's lung stuff we saw in the thoracic cavity overall. Let's move on down into the abdominal cavity. Open things up here. First, hard to miss this big thing, the liver. Then hidden amongst the right lobes of the liver, this little collapsed sac way down inside there. That's the gallbladder. Kind of hard to find on this mink, but it's still there. So gallbladder is in there. Over on this side, this big organ right here was the spleen. Then curling around in this fashion, this is the stomach, going right through here. The big apron of tissue we see here, this is called the greater omentum. And I'll pull that back out of the way now to expose the small intestines. And going down the right-hand side of the small intestines, right in here, this is the duodenum. Put everything back in place. We then said these upper loops would be jejunum, lower loops are ileum. Flip everything over to this side now. Here is the end of the ileum coming around like so. This point down where it gets wider, now we have the large intestine or colon. The most inferior part way down there is the rectum. So again, you get ileum, large intestine, and rectum. Of course, right in front of the large intestine, that was the urinary bladder right in here. Then over here, we can see some other structures. Nice kidney. This would be a left kidney. And some big, this tube here that drains urine from the kidney, this is the ureter. So the ureter would go from the kidney all the way down to the urinary bladder. So that's the ureter. A couple big arteries and veins here. Look at this huge vein, nice big and blue there. That's the inferior vena cava. The artery right beside it is the abdominal aorta. Down here we can see where the abdominal aorta branches. See these two branches right here? Those are the two external iliac arteries, left and right external iliac. Right behind them are the external iliac veins that have the very same name. Coming up here with the kidney, this vein coming from our left kidney, this is the left renal vein. And right behind it, kind of right in here, you see a nice left renal artery right in there. Okay, so left renal artery and a left renal vein coming through there. Just above the kidney, by the way, this little tiny bean-shaped structure right here, actually, this little white thing, that's the adrenal gland. So this little white thing right there is the left adrenal gland on the mink. Then we have this big yellow structure up here too as well, don't forget that. This big yellow vein here, this is the hepatic portal vein, or you can call it the portal vein, just don't call it the hepatic vein. So either hepatic portal or portal vein. And then the structure I'm holding right now in my hand, long and kind of black, that's the pancreas. Another nice organ we find down here. So that's pancreas. Then we saw just today structures in the male reproductive system. Penis was right here. Here was a couple of testes, and what's attached to it right there, that's spermatic cord. So testis, spermatic cord. Then back here, the urinary bladder was just below where the bladder is, down here, that white structure. So bladder, and down below it, that is the prostate gland. Okay. Finally, the mink's thigh here, let's see if we can find, here we go. Little nerve here, the nerve you see here, the little white string, that's the femoral nerve. Right beside it, there'll be a femoral artery, the little red thing here. And the blue thing is femoral vein. So nerve, artery, and vein, in that color, in that order in minks and in humans. Femoral nerve, femoral artery, femoral vein. What do we call the big nerve that was found on the back of the thigh?
Sciatic.
Sciatic nerve, exactly. Don't forget about that thing. So as far as nerves go, you want to know sciatic nerve, femoral nerve, up here in the mink's underarm, brachial plexus, and up in the neck, we already saw the vagus nerve. Remember, of course, in the female mink, you had, ovaries, the horns of the uterus, body of the uterus, vagina, and on the mink brain, cerebrum and cerebellum. And that's it. We are all done.